Imagine standing on a rugged coastline, the wind whipping around you, and, there it is, a lighthouse. Standing tall against a furious sea, its beam cutting through the darkness, a steadfast beacon promising safety.
It's such a pure, singular purpose, doesn't it?
Right.
Light in the dark.
Exactly. But what if I told you that even these seemingly simple life-saving structures actually need incredibly complex legal blueprints just to exist and function?
Ah, now we're getting into it.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into an historical but really revealing document, Australia's Lighthouses Act of 1911.
And we're not just dusting off old laws here. We're looking at how a very young nation, the Commonwealth of Australia, was laying the foundational groundwork for its national maritime safety infrastructure. Quite a task.
It really was. Our mission today is to unpack the specific powers, the responsibilities, and even the nitty-gritty financial mechanisms this early 20th century act set up.
We're going to find out what it tells us about how national administration worked back then, that crucial shift of power from the states to the Commonwealth.
And the often surprising details of governing something as fundamental as, well, a light in the dark.
And just so you know, our source for this deep dive is the actual legal text, the Lighthouses Act, 1911 itself.
That's right. So we get a direct, unvarnished look at the very words that shaped Australia's maritime safety for decades. It's a fascinating glimpse into the early machinery of a new federation figuring things out.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Okay, let's set the stage. The Act, its full title is An Act Relating to Lighthouses, Lightships, Beacons, and Buoys, got assent on December 22nd, 1911.
Right near Christmas. A nice little game for maritime safety.
Huh, maybe. And right away, it defines some key terms that really broaden your understanding of what they were aiming to regulate, like collector.
Yeah, that's defined as the chief officer of customs at any port. So your top customs official on the ground.
It makes sense. But marine marks is where the scope really opens up, isn't it?
It really is. It includes lightships, beacons, buoys. Okay,
Yeah.
you might expect those. But
Yeah.
also submarine signal stations.
You have marine signals in 1911.
Exactly. Think about that foresight. They were already thinking beyond just visible lights, anticipating, integrating other technologies for navigation, even ones underwater.
Wow, so it wasn't just about those iconic towers, it was a whole network.
A comprehensive network. That forward thinking is pretty remarkable for the time.
Absolutely. So who is put in charge of this whole operation, this new national system?
The act is very clear. Administration fell to the Minister for Trade and Customs or whoever was acting in that role.
Okay, trade and customs. Given how young the Commonwealth was then, just 10 years old, how significant was it to centralize something like this so early on?
Oh, it was hugely significant. You have to remember, before this, maritime aids were often a real patchwork, managed by individual states, sometimes port authorities, even private groups.
A bit messy, I imagine.
Could be very messy. So this act, it clearly signals the Commonwealth, saying, okay, this is a national responsibility now. They wanted to consolidate power and standardize these crucial services across, a massive coastline.
So, a top priority.
Definitely. Yeah. It tells us a reliable, consistent safety for shipping was seen as absolutely essential. For defense, yes, but also hugely for commerce in a young nation so dependent on the sea.
Right. So if they wanted this national network, they couldn't just, snap their fingers and make lighthouses appear. They had to get them, often from the states or private owners. That must have been tricky legally for a new government.
It was a major hurdle, yeah. But the act laid out a surprisingly direct path. It basically allowed the Commonwealth to make agreements with state governors or even any private person to acquire lighthouses or marine marks they owned.
Okay, agreements. But what about lights run by, say, a state port authority?
Ah, that's where they put in a clever bit of legal drafting.
Yeah.
If a lighthouse or mark was vested in a state authority, basically managed or controlled by them, the act just deemed it to be state property for acquisition purposes.
Ah, a shortcut.
Exactly. It streamlined the whole transfer process, kind of cut through potential arguments about who exactly owned it, made it simpler to deal directly with the state government level.
Clever. And it wasn't just the lighthouses themselves, the physical structures.
No, the Commonwealth could also purchase all the associated stuff. The boats used to service the lighthouses, the tenders, store vessels, spare parts, stores, any other equipment needed, the whole kit and caboodle.
And this is where the federal power really flexes its muscles, right?
Absolutely. The Act explicitly stated that any legal document, any instrument or assurance used to transfer a lighthouse or mark to the Commonwealth was legally valid and effectual,
Meaning,
meaning it worked, legally speaking,
yeah.
and crucially, it overrode any state law that might have conflicted with it.
Wow, so the Commonwealth wasn't really asking permission.
Not really. It was establishing national authority in this critical area, a very clear statement of federal supremacy.
Okay, so once they acquired these things or decided to build new ones, what powers did the minister have?
Full operational control, pretty much. The minister got the explicit power to erect or place new lighthouses or marine marks.
Build from scratch.
Yep. And also to add to, alter, or even remove existing Commonwealth ones. And they could change the character of a lighthouse, like how its light flashed its pattern or how the lights were exhibited.
So complete control over how the system actually worked day to day.
That's it. Really took charge of every detail.
Now, what about checking up on things? Making sure everything was working, even lights they didn't own yet?
Right, inspection powers. And they were sweeping. The minister, or an authorized officer, could inspect any marine mark or any lamp or light they thought might affect navigation safety.
Any light, public or private.
Didn't matter. Public property, private property. They had the right to enter any property at any reasonable time, day or night, to do the inspection.
Day or night.
Day or night. And if you tried to hinder them or obstruct them, there was a penalty. 50 pounds.
50 pounds. That was a serious amount of money back in 1911.
It absolutely was. Several months' wages for many people. So they weren't just suggesting politely, they really meant business.
They definitely did. And something else caught my eye, this bit about connectivity.
Yes. The telegraph and telephone requirement.
Tell us about that. It seems quite modern, almost.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The act required that any lighthouse the Commonwealth acquired or built had to be connected as soon as practicable by telegraph or telephone to a convenient office.
And the government paid for it?
Yep, the expense was charged to the department administering the Act Trade and Customs. It's this fascinating little glimpse into building a national communication network alongside the physical navigation network. They understood the need for information flow.
Very interesting. It wasn't just about the light itself, but managing the system.
Precisely. And that management extended to lights they didn't own too. The minister had broad power to issue written notices to owners of any marine mark or lamp if it was causing a navigation safety issue.
What kind of notices? What could they demand?
Quite a lot. They could demand the owner remove it completely or move it somewhere else. They could require the owner modify it, alter its character, or even just stop lighting it, either entirely or for a specific period.
So real power to control any light affecting shipping lanes.
Absolutely. And if the owner didn't comply with the notice...
Let me guess. More penalties.
Oh, yes. If a notice wasn't complied with, the minister had some serious options. They could literally take possession of the light or mark.
Take it over.
Yep. Or order it forfeited. Or they could just do the work required themselves. Move it, change it, whatever, and charge the cost back to the owner.
And collect that cost as a debt.
As a debt, recoverable in court. Plus another potential penalty of 50 pounds for noncompliance, unless the owner had a reasonable cause. They had real teeth to enforce these rules.
Definitely serious teeth. Now, you mentioned owners. Did this apply to state governments too? Could they be fined?
That's a really important point, actually. The definition of owner did include state governments and state authorities. So the minister could issue notices to them.
But, I sense a but.
There's a crucial proviso. State governments or their authorities were not liable for the pecuniary penalties, the fines, the 50 pounds, if they didn't comply.
Ah, okay. So the Commonwealth could tell them what to do and could do the work itself and charge them, but couldn't fine the state government itself.
Exactly. It's a nuanced carve-out. Sort of acknowledges the state's own sovereign status while still asserting federal operational control, a delicate balance of power.
Interesting. But even without the fines for states, they still wanted information from everyone, right?
They did. Harbor authorities, local councils, anyone managing harbor lights or marking navigable waters, they all had to send regular reports or returns to the minister.
What kind of info?
Details about the lights and marks under their control, what they were, where they were located. It shows that clear desire for centralized oversight, a full inventory of the nation's navigation aids.
Building a complete picture. Now, what about protecting the Commonwealth itself? Running all these lights, things can go wrong. Was the government liable if, say, a light failed and a ship ran aground?
Ah, liability. The act included a very significant clause providing immunity. It stated that no civil legal action could be taken against the Commonwealth, the minister, or any officer
For anything.
for any act, default, error, or omission related to lighthouses or marine marks, even if it was negligent.
Wow, that's broad protection.
It's substantial immunity. It effectively shielded government operations in this critical area from lawsuits, which was probably seen as necessary to get the national system up and running effectively without constant legal challenges.
Okay, so they've got the power to acquire, build, inspect, control, and they're protected from lawsuits. But running all this costs money, big money, presumably.
Absolutely. Maintaining lighthouses, especially back then, paying keepers, fueling the lights, servicing remote locations, it all adds up. Infrastructure needs funding.
So how did the Act plan for that? How are they going to pay for it all?
Through a very direct financial mechanism, light dues.
Okay, light dues, like a tax on shipping.
It's essentially, yes, a user fee. The Act said these dues were to be levied according to rates or scales set out in regulations. It could be charged per voyage or maybe as a periodic payment, like annually.
So the ships using the safety services would pay for them.
That was the principle. And crucially, once the Commonwealth set its light dues rates, any similar dues being charged under a state act automatically cease to have effect. Except for dues charged solely for lights that were still maintained purely by the state,
Yeah.
maybe within a specific local harbor not taken over by the Commonwealth. But for the main coastal lights, it was the Commonwealth's charge now.
Another clear assertion of federal control, this time financial.
Definitely. A uniform national system for funding national infrastructure.
So who actually had to cough up the money? Who was liable to pay these dues?
The Act made several parties jointly and severally liable. This meant the Commonwealth could go after any one of them for the full amount.
Okay, who were they?
The ship's owner, the ship's master, and also any consignee or agent who had paid or was liable to pay any other charges related to the ship, like port fees, for example.
So multiple targets. Makes collection easier, I suppose.
Much more straightforward than trying to chase fractional amounts from different people. And the enforcement powers to back this up were pretty strong.
How strong?
Well, first, the dues could be recovered pretty quickly in a summary jurisdiction court, like a lower court for faster resolution.
Okay. What if they just didn't pay when asked?
If the dues weren't paid on demand, the collector, remember, the customs officer could board the ship.
Board the ship?
Yep. And distrain goods or equipment. Basically, seize stuff from the ship. They could hold onto it, and if the dues still weren't paid within 3 days, they could sell the seized goods.
Sell the ship's equipment. Wow.
Sell it, use the money to cover the light dues, and any costs involved in the seizure and sale, and then return any leftover money, the surplus, to the owner or master.
That's serious leverage. Any other enforcement tools?
Oh, yes. Any customs officer anywhere in Australia could detain a ship in port until its light dues were paid. Full stop. Can't leave until you pay up.
Okay, they really wanted to make sure they got paid.
It was vital for funding the whole system. And there was one more small provision. If an agent paid the dues for a ship, they were allowed to hold back that amount from any money they later received for the ship or its owner, so
Yeah.
the agent wasn't left out of pocket.
Right, makes sense. Now, with all these valuable assets, lighthouses, buoys, equipment scattered along the coast, often in remote places, protecting them must have been a concern.
Absolutely. Vandalism, accidents. These things could put lives at risk if a navigational aid was damaged. So the Act laid out specific offenses. Think of it as a clear, don't mess with the lights policy.
What kind of things were prohibited?
A whole range. It covered deliberately or even just negligently, injuring, damaging, destroying, or running your ship into a Commonwealth lighthouse, marine mark, light, or any related equipment.
So accidents caused by negligence counted too.
Yes, but also deliberate acts, like willfully obstructing the view of a lighthouse so it's less effective,
Yeah.
or removing, altering, tying your boat up to, or riding by a Commonwealth buoy or beacon without permission.
Making fast to a buoy, yeah, you can see how that could damage it or pull it off station.
Exactly. And just plain trespassing, entering any Commonwealth lighthouse, marine mark, service vessel, or related property without lawful authority was also an offense.
Okay, and the penalties for doing these things?
The general penalty was set at 100 pounds. Again, a very hefty sum back then.
A real deterrent.
Hopefully. And on top of the fine, the offender could also be ordered to pay for the cost of the damage they caused repairing or replacing the property.
So pay the fine and pay for the repairs.
Correct. And there was a specific point about ships causing damage. If damage to a lighthouse or mark was caused by a ship, the cost of that damage was charged directly on the ship itself.
How does that work? Charge it on the ship.
It meant the ship could be detained by a customs officer until the amount of the damage was paid. So the ship itself was held responsible, financially speaking. Again, very strong measures to protect this vital infrastructure.
They certainly weren't messing around. Now, one last piece of the puzzle. How did they handle the fine details, the day-to-day rules?
That fell under the regulation-making power. The Act gave the Governor General the authority to make regulations,
As long as they were.
as long as they were consistent with the Act itself. These regulations were the tool for carrying out the Act, for giving effect to its provisions, basically filling in the operational details, setting the exact light due rates, prescribing forms, that sort of thing. It allowed the system to adapt over time without needing a whole new Act of Parliament for every little change.
Got it. So, pulling this all together, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into the 1911 Lighthouses Act?
Well, it's clearly a foundational piece of legislation, isn't it? It established that comprehensive Commonwealth control over maritime safety aids, acquiring them, building them, maintaining them, funding them through dues, and protecting them with some serious enforcement.
Yeah, it really covers the whole life cycle.
And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture, it's much more than just, old laws about lighthouses. It's a really fascinating snapshot of nation building.
How so?
You see the young federal government actively consolidating power, standardizing a vital service across this huge continent, asserting its authority over something absolutely critical for safety and for the economy.
It really demonstrates how legislation-specific laws enable essential infrastructure. Infrastructure that literally lights the way for a nation's growth.
Precisely. It underpins so much.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on. Think about how many modern rules and regulations, things that seem totally unrelated to lighthouses, might still operate on these very same basic principles we've seen here.
Principles like centralized authority for national issues, the user pays idea for funding infrastructure, the government protecting its assets, ensuring public safety.
Exactly. This early act, with all its detail on acquisition, operation, finance, penalties, it reflects a government taking on that fundamental responsibility to protect its people and its commerce.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what other seemingly, mundane pieces of old legislation might hold equally fascinating insights into how a nation figures out how to govern itself, how it sets its priorities right from the beginning.
Something to ponder, definitely.